Hi, my dear family. Well, here is the breakdown for all 12 signs with the entry of Uranus into the sign of Gemini. So in this video, I'm going to be covering three signs. So this is going to be four segments because I'm planning to make each sign approximately about 15 minutes long. I recommend listening to your sun sign or your moon sign, but this is designed especially for your rising sign, but you can get a lot of information out if you listen to your sun and your moon sign as well. Before we get going, I would like to remind you that you have got a day or two to sign up for my upcoming predictive long 1 year program. This is going to be covering 25 plus timing techniques. So you must become professional by the end of the 55 weeks. Approximately, it's going to take about 55 weeks. And you can do that two ways. You can just purchase the course itself, or you can sign up on my membership, and then you will be able to get a lot of discount. And not to mention that all my courses and webinars will be open for you. But this is only available for level 3 members. So check it out on my website. Now let's get going with Aries rising sign. So Aries rising sign, Uranus is moving into your second house. This is a big upgrade. Buckle up. You are the pioneers of the Zodiac, the ones who strike the match. But maybe for the last 7 years, while Uranus was in Taurus, the focus was a little bit heavy. It was on your money, your possessions, your physical security. It might have felt a bit slow or even frustratingly kind of material. But this is about to change. As Uranus moves into Gemini, it enters your third house. So this is a shift from the earth to the air department of your chart. We are moving from the wallet to the mind. So Uranus is the planet of disruption, chaos, and sudden upgrades. He is the great awakener. So Gemini is the sign of communication, data, your local environment, your ideas. So when these two collide in your third house, your daily life is about to get kind of like this electric shock. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down why your social circle is shifting, thanks to Uranus ruling your 11th house from a modern astrology point of view, and how your brain is literally getting kind of like a software update, and how this transit affects you differently depending on which generation you belong to. So if you have been feeling like you are stuck in a mental fog, the lightning is actually coming, and then things are going to start clearing out for you. So let's talk about the third house. This is your lower mind. It's how you process information, how you speak, how you commute to work, how you navigate through the daily activities. So think of your brain like a computer. For years, you have been running on an old operating system, and Uranus in the third house is kind of like a forced software upgrade. You might find that you suddenly lose interest in topics you have studied for years, and out of nowhere, you get this intuitive hit to study something weird. Maybe it's quantum physics or AI or a new language, but you aren't just learning it. You are kind of like downloading information. You do things at light speeds. Uranus, though, brings disruption as well. So your old ways of speaking might not work anymore. If you have been a people pleaser, you might suddenly start kind of like blurting out radical truth of your own. Your speech can become a lot more electric. You might experience sudden changes in how you use technology. Maybe you delete all your social media and then you move to a different platform, or you decide to start a newsletter, or you start doing a online web shop, for example. The third house is your neighborhood and your siblings. So don't be surprised if your immediate environment becomes slightly bit chaotic. You might move suddenly, or your neighborhood might undergo a massive technological facelift. Relationship with siblings or cousins can go through a reset as well, either a sudden kind of rift or a sudden kind of collaboration, for example. Now, I have made a video about Uranus in Gemini generally. So you might want to be listening to that video because it can give you a lot of new ideas how to think about Uranus. And at the same time, don't forget to sign up on my course because you might be able to predict your, next 7, 8 year cycle that Uranus actually helps you with. But the other thing is that Uranus is the modern ruler of your 11th house. So, this is a bit of a secret sauce there because 11th house is your tribe, your friends, your long-term dreams. Because the ruler of your 11th house now is in the third, there is somehow a direct link between what you say and who you know. So this is about networking through ideas. So it's not about finding your new tribe, for example, at a bar or a standard event, You find them kind of like in comment section of a blog or online basically, or even you go to this local workshop and then you bump into these new friends who might be changing your way of thinking completely. Now, the 11th house is also connected to gains from career. So, with Uranus in the third house, your income could see quite an upgrade actually, but through third house activities, writing, teaching, podcasting, flipping information, all these can cause a financial breakthrough. Uranus acts like, a disruptor as well. So it's like a centrifuge, so it spins so fast that the loose friends, the one who don't resonate with your new kind of higher frequency, can actually disappear. And at the beginning, it can feel like, chaotic, because friends are obviously exiting your life, but they are making room for geniuses and innovators to enter, who belong in your future. Now, what's also very important to look at is where Uranus comes from. So Uranus stays in a sign for about 7 years. So your experience of this Gemini transit depends heavily on where Uranus was when you were born. So do let me know in the chat box below. But I'm going to give you three specific scenarios. So if you have got Uranus in your in the sign of Scorpio, eighth house, then it means that you were born somewhere around 1975 to 1981. Then you are used to disruption, when it comes to finances, deep psychology, taboo topics. This is about you having to face the shadow work. Now, Uranus moves into your third house, so your job is to take that scorpionic depth and then communicate about it. So you are the one who can speak about death and taxes and trauma in a way that is liberating rather than just heavy. So you are meant to be talking third house about eighth house topics. So even could be spirituality, or you might be studying certain type of esoteric fields, for example. So your upgrade is kind of like moving from this silent, brooding observer to this communicator of deep truth. Because in the eighth house, you do a lot of research and a lot of looking for the truth element. So maybe you write a book, third house, kind of like a tell-all book, tell it all type of book. Or maybe you're starting a consulting business based on your life transformations and so forth. Now, if you have got maybe Uranus in Sagittarius, meaning that it comes from your ninth house, and you were born somewhere around 81 to 88, and then this is opposing your natal Uranus. So this is a tug of war between the bigger picture and the small details. So you can experience sudden change in your beliefs. You realize that your grand theories need to be grounded in a more practical way, or giving it more of a local attention, or you just stop dreaming about a better world and start talking to your neighbors about how to build a better community. So it's an upgrade from a philosopher to more of a messenger. This is about you having to share your belief system with others, but maybe we need slightly bit more information about that too. And then if you were born somewhere around 1988 onwards, to 2003, then you have got either Capricorn or Aquarius, Uranus. And that's a bit, if you have got Uranus in the 11th house, that's actually about your social network is already quite electric. You are used to these, technological type of stuff. You can use these tools to manage your life better. So this could be quite nice for you. And maybe you invent a new way of communicating, or you can use your intuitive hits to predict market trends. So this wouldn't be a chaos for you. If you have got Uranus in the sign of Capricorn, potentially this could talk to you about having a new business idea, which might not be taking off as quickly as we would like to, but it can definitely take off. You're just gonna have to be patient. You're gonna have to study a new field, for example, so that your career can change for the better. Before we wrap up, we have to talk about the kind of fried circuit of this as well. Uranus is a very high voltage energy, and Gemini is the nervous system. So when you put them together in your third house, there is a risk of mental burnout. Maybe you might feel wired but tired. Your brain is moving so fast that your body cannot keep up. So you can experience jitters, scattered way of thinking as well. So you must ground this type of electricity. When the intuitive hit comes, write it down immediately. Don't just let it loop around in your head, basically. And don't try to force schedule for you, Leave little bits and bobs open there because Uranus can mess things up as well. There could be sudden changes in your day. If a meeting gets cancelled, don't get frustrated. Look for the hidden opportunity that opened up in that time slot. So Aries rising sign, you are the voice of the new era. Use this Uranus in Gemini transit to upgrade your mind, find your tribe, and speak your truth, no matter how radical that sounds. So if you are feeling those first sparks of Gemini energy, drop a comment below. I wouldn't be shocked because Uranus shifted into the sign of Gemini already last year for about 4 months. So you should have received a bit of a picture. So let me hear about your own experiences as well. But it's about maybe you have got a crazy idea that you have been sitting on for a while. Maybe it is time to let it out. So don't forget to like and subscribe for more practical astrology updates, and I'll see you in the next one. Now let's move on to Taurus. Taurus rising sign, the last 7 years have been intense with Uranus sitting directly on your ascendant. Your very identity, your body, and your appearance have likely gone through a rebrand. You didn't always ask for, though. Maybe it felt like you had been forced. But Uranus moves into Gemini. The revolution moves from that personality to your pocket. So Uranus is about to enter your second house, and this is the house of earned income, personal values, self-worth. So for a Taurus rising sign who typically craves stability and the known, this transit can feel like a bit of a roller coaster, but actually it should be a massive upgrade for you. And because Uranus is the modern ruler of your 10th house, this would talk to you about what type of ways I want to be making money. It's about how you generate wealth and how you value your talents. So today we are breaking down the chaos, the intuitive hit, and the sudden changes coming to your material world. But let me invite you for my upcoming course. This is going to be about a 55-week predictive course. And I'm going to teach you over 25 timing techniques. So by the end of it, you should become a master of how to predict your own future. So if it's in your interest, check it out on my website. It's available for all my level 3 members, by the way. So the second house is where we touch the world. It's our cash, our belongings, our sense of security. So the planet of lightning hits this house. The old way of making a living kind of like starts to feel like a cage. So you might experience certain changes in your income. This isn't necessarily bad though. It's an upgrade, sometimes disguised as a shift. Maybe your steady 9 to 5 job suddenly shifts to more of a freelance model, or you are trying to find a way to monetize a digital skill you didn't know you had. The status quo of that monthly paycheck might be replaced by, something else. The burst of high income gains, for example. Gemini is a double sign, so it's about data and variety. You might find yourself managing multiple income streams. One might be traditional, while the other one kind of Uranian. So think crypto, digital products, tech-based consulting. You are learning that your security doesn't come from a pile of gold anymore, but from your intellectual flexibility. By the way, I did make a general video on Uranus in Gemini, and you might want to be listening to that because I'm giving you a lot of tips and hints how to manage this transit. I also believe that this is a value reset for you. What you find valuable is going to change. You might suddenly sell off a bunch of possessions that feel like clutter, maybe to fund a new high-tech project. Your self-worth becomes detached from how much I own and attached to how much I can actually innovate and how much I can kind of upgrade my life. As I said, Uranus is the modern ruler of your 10th house. So your career status is now directly feeding your bank account. This is a natural trine anyway. So if you have been working, for the man or a rigid corporate structure, Uranus in your second house says, well, my talent is worth more than that. Or my talent is worth when I'm free. So you can get these intuitive hits to strike out on your own. But because Uranus rules your 10th house, your reputation as an innovator or rebel is exactly what starts bringing in the cash for you. This is not making money from the old school networking or working the same way like we used to. This is more of a Gemini activity, so short form content, quick conversations, being in the know. Your bank account grows when you connect people or trade information and stuff like that. Now, it's important to look at where Uranus comes from your natal chart, though, because this transit feels different depending on where your natal Uranus is located. So let's just look at some possibilities. I cannot go through all of it. But if you have got Uranus in Scorpio, for example, then Uranus comes from your seventh house, and you were born somewhere 1975, 1981-ish. So this could talk, with now Uranus entering your second house, the power shift is back from you. Maybe, you are going to have the courage or the self-worth to walk out of a relationship. Maybe you stop relying on the volatile resources of others or partners, and you realize that you can generate your own income. You take that psychological lesson learned from intense relationship and turn them into something more profitable, maybe an independent business. So I'm not relying on others. That's the seventh or the eighth house, depending on where Uranus comes from. But I'm having to rely on my own. Some of you might get divorced as well, unfortunately. The second house represents divorce, especially if Uranus comes from your eighth house. Sorry, seventh house. Now, if you were born somewhere 1981 to 1988, then you already know how to deal with sudden changes and stuff like that, or crisis situations. So this is going to be opposing you because Uranus you were born with Uranus in the sign of Sagittarius. So you might move away from managing other people's money or shared assets and then decide to focus purely on your liquid cash. Maybe It's about investment opportunities for you. But those big picture investments, you break them down into smaller. So instead of putting all your eggs in one basket, potentially you might be kind of like thinking about multiple ways of doing that. And then if you were born with Uranus in Capricorn or Aquarius, then it's nine for 10th house. I would say that in this case, um, maybe it's not so scary for you. Maybe it's about already a technological type of era that you were born into, and maybe you are a bit more aligned with a weird career path, and then it can finally pay off. But maybe you have been an outsider at work for a while, and maybe the market is finally catching up to your values. So your intuitive hits about investments, about what type of work to go towards, could be super good. Every Uranus transit has a warning. So, because this is the planet of sudden change. And, when we have got in the second house, things can get a bit twitchy though. So you can get that sudden urge to buy the latest gadget, tech, or a course that you think will change everything. And then you just hit the buy button, you know, because Uranus in Gemini is very fast, and it's not always focused. So maybe one month you might make triple your salary. The next month might be quite quiet. So you have to learn to ride the wave. Don't panic when the chaos hits. It's just kind of clearing out the old way of earning to make room for the better. So some of you might be losing their job. Taurus rising sign usually feel safe when things stay the same. So this transit will change that. So if you feel anxious about money, it's a sign that you are trying to hold on to an old version of yourself. Breathe through the changes. Your value is no longer tied to how hard you can work, but how smartly you can adapt. Uranus in Gemini is giving you a golden ticket to this more flexible, intellectual, kind of like modernized financial life. So don't be afraid to diversify. Don't be afraid to change your mind about what you are worth. If you have seen a sudden shift in your finances lately, do let me know in the comment box below, because Uranus shifted into the sign of Gemini already last year between July to November. So I'm curious to hear your experiences. Or have you started seeing new opportunities, or maybe you feel a bit scared now? So do let me know. Now let's move on to Gemini rising sign. So Gemini rising sign, of course, this is a big hit. I mean, Uranus is moving into your first house. Maybe you have felt like you have been in the waiting room for the last 7 years, and the doors are about to be blown off their hinges. For nearly a decade, Uranus has been hiding in your 12th house, bringing weird dreams, subconscious shifts, behind the scenes chaos. But now, the planet of disruption and genius is stepping out of the shadows and directly hitting your ascendant. Uranus is entering your first house. This is you, your body, your personality, your brand, how the world sees you, and also how you see the world, how you want to be presenting yourself. It's not just a simple transit for you. This is a total system reboot. Uranus is the modern ruler of your ninth house, the higher wisdom, travel, beliefs. So this shift is about more than just kind of like a new haircut. It's about a radical upgrade to your entire life philosophy and how you project that onto the world. So we are diving into this intuitive hit, the sudden physical changes, and that beautiful chaos of becoming a brand new version of yourself. So hopefully it gets you excited. But before we go into details, I would like to remind you that my new course, 55 weeks course on predictive techniques, where I'm going to be teaching you more than 25 predictive ancient and modern techniques as well, are about to start in 2 days. So you might want to check that out on my website. Surely you're going to become a professional and you're going to be able to predict your own stuff as well. But the first house is, imagine that as a front door of your chart. So when Uranus, the planet of lightning, crosses the line, the old you starts feel like, it was in a costume party. That doesn't fit anymore, that has to be taken off. So that's a huge sudden change in your appearance. This is the classic transit for a radical makeover, basically. You dye your hair, vibrant color, get a tattoo that represents freedom, or completely change your style to something more futuristic, eclectic. You are literally electrifying your physical presence. You have always been maybe, Gemini rising sign is a quick-witted one. But now your personality becomes very disruptive as well. You might find yourself more rebellious, less willing to follow social scripts, much more interested in radical authenticity. And if you have been playing safe, Uranus will provide the chaos necessary to break you out of the shell. And you might start a project or a brand that shocks people. You quit your job out of the blue, but you will love every second of it. Now, with Uranus in your sign, your body is hosting this high voltage there. So you can feel super restless, hyper alert. It's kind of like you have had 10 cups of coffee when you had none. So imagine also that this is kind of like firing up your intuitive hits. Like everything is running 100 miles per hour around you because you are becoming this human antenna for new ideas. And then they are just coming to you and then you downloading them, especially if you were born with Uranus in your eighth house because that is connected to intuition, or Uranus, you were born with Uranus in the sign of Aquarius, which is your ninth house. Like I said, Uranus is the modern ruler of your ninth house. So it feels like that you become this global messenger. The ninth house is the bigger picture, publishing, foreign cultures, new belief system. So it's about you living your truth. The Uranus is the belief system in your chart, so it's sitting on your shoulder. So you can no longer keep your philosophies private, You become your own message. And if you believe in a radical new way of living, you start living it very openly. Uh, it's kind of like I'm becoming the teacher who is an example as well at the same time. So I'm not just going to be preaching about it, but I'm going to be living my own truth. You might be relocating. It might be a sudden opportunity to move abroad, go back to school for something unconventional, or you're going to publish a book that changes your public image completely. Your status as a global citizen or a visionary upgrades overnight. So you might feel that you are going to become more popular than ever. Uh, you might want to share your personal experiences and opinions with others also. Because the ninth house is about sharing our worldview, and the ninth house is my personal experiences. Somehow you seem to be changing your place in the world, physically, mentally, or emotionally. Now, some of you, especially those who were born with Uranus in Scorpio, maybe now you realizing that you don't want to be in the same job. So you want a different life. So you want a different job. But especially if you were born with Uranus in the sign of Scorpio. So, and then you take that Scorpionic resilience and then you transform your identity, or you're gonna go through this body makeover. You might quit the grind to become more of a freelance visionary. It's an upgrade from kind of serving the system to being the system yourself. If you were born with Uranus in Scorpio, most of, or many of you will change job. I'm very certain about that. If you were born with Uranus in Sagittarius, then this might be talking to you about a divorce or certain type of disruptions in your partnerships and contractual agreement, especially if the relationship has been unstable. This is going to be a Uranus opposition to Uranus for you. So this is the me versus them moment. And you might realize that you have been letting other people define your uniqueness. And now you take the Sagittarian freedom back from your partners and claim it for yourself. So it's about, instead of seeking freedom in others, it's about finding freedom within. And if you were born with Uranus in Capricorn or Aquarius, then you were born somewhere 88 to 2003. And maybe you kind of feel like that, you know what, I've arrived, especially because Uranus rules your ninth house. You know, your personal brand, your worldview are kind of like aligning now, and maybe you become a leader in a digital space, or you are building a niche community. This is going to be, especially for Capricorn and Aquarius, Uranus people, it's about aligning with your higher self. Um, when Uranus is in the first house, you know, you are kind of like a walking lightning rod. So you have to be very careful not to burn out, though. You know, you can get so many intuitive hits and chaos in your life, you know, or that new you can shock others around you. You might be changing your mind every 5 minutes. You know, Gemini rising already struggles with focus anyway. So Uranus is making it 10 times harder. So you can blow up your lives on a Tuesday just because you are bored. So just watch out for kind of like fatigue. And it can cause a bit of an anxiety as well. You might find your hands are shaking or your mind is racing at 3 a.m., especially if you experience such things while Uranus was in your 12th house. Or, you know, you might actually start sport because Gemini is about physical movement, and maybe you have to be cutting back on caffeine or spending a bit more time in nature, you know, just to kind of keep your circuits from frying. And you might gonna enjoy actually shocking people around you, you know. Rebellion can be a bit of a fun as well, but obviously some people, you might experience that some people are going to be leaving your life. Gemini, I think this is your time to shine. You know, the world is finally kind of like ready for your speed, your weight, your humor, your ability to see 5 minutes into the future, you know. Don't be afraid of upgrading something in your life. You should be going towards these huge changes. You might end up changing your name, your look, your entire life direction. So do tell me about it in the comments. Because Gemini, I mean, Uranus went into the sign of Gemini last year already for a little while, and then you could see a bit of a peak, what to expect from it. Was it exciting or was it more of a chaos? So I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in my upcoming predictive course. Take care, and I'm going to be back tomorrow with another free signs. Have a good one, everyone. Bye bye.